Up to this point, we have done all of these things, set up our AWS servers, and installed Cloudera Manager on the command line. Next, we're going to use Cloudera Manager's web GUI to install CDH on the masters and slaves, and then we'll wrap up in subsequent parts with all of this stuff. So again, required, you have to have gone through parts 1 and 2 for this part to make any sense. And in the suggested bucket, it's highly suggested that you have about 15 to 30 minutes total to complete the remaining parts of this lesson. Again, you are incurring AWS charges for every hour or partial hour that your cluster is up. For this particular cluster, it's going to be in the range of about 33 cents, but you're charged that amount every partial hour. Just want to make that clear again in case you got sidetracked and forgot. So when we last left off, we were in this screen. We had a Cloudera Manager window come up from part 1, and we had just finished our install from our command line. So let's go ahead and clean up some space. Let's get rid of our little window down there that had our downloads. And let's log in to the web console with admin. And let's click this button to remember me on this computer. I've had mixed luck with this, so you may have better luck than I have. It usually forgets who I am. On this initial screen, we're going to use the Cloudera Enterprise trial. So go ahead and select this. After 60 days, the Enterprise version of this one will expire, and then you'll just have Cloudera Standard, which is the core of Cloudera Manager to give us that monitoring and so forth. So let's just go ahead and select the default right there. And it's telling us that we need to restart our services. So let's copy that command, go into our master SSH terminal. The one thing they forgot here, though, is we've got to run this as sudo. Let's move our screen up a little bit so we can see everything. And let's type sudo and paste in our command there, service Cloudera SCM server restart. And as we do that, you'll see the status over here pop back and forth. And let's maybe move this window up a little bit so you can see the install happen. As this is coming up, you might want to flip over to your EC2 management console and just push refresh there to make sure you got the most current picture, and make sure that all of your servers are up and running. If any of your servers have crashed, you'll need to restart that particular machine. And if it's the master, you'd have to restart back over from step number 1. It should take no longer than about 30 seconds or so for our service to bounce. And you see it back here in the terminal. It's restarted. It's just thinking over here. You might want to go ahead and pause the video at this point and pick back up as soon as your service has restarted, which I'm going to do as well. In hopefully under a minute, you'll see what I'm seeing right here, and we can log back in with admin. And you're going to try that again. And we're going to launch the classic wizard to install this time. It's just giving us a quick message about everything it's going to install. Some of this is base that Hadoop requires, and some of it is extra like Impala. On this screen, Cloudera Manager is asking us for the IP addresses of all the nodes of our cluster. So let's go back to our document where we pasted those out, and let's go ahead and grab all the private IPs. And I'm going to paste them back in here. Make sure that you remove that M when you paste. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 completely different independent private IP addresses. Let's push search. Cloudera Manager is reaching out to all of these slaves just to make sure that they're there and they're pinging. And we see green check marks, meaning they're all there. Let's push continue. And on this page, we have 2 options for installing our packages. One is we can use packages. One is we can use parcels. Parcels gives us a little bit more in-depth functionality and a little bit more ease of use, so we should always strive to use that. We're going to use whatever the current version of CDH is, and we don't really need Solar or Impala, so we're going to check none on those. That's the one change we're going to make on this screen. And push continue. Here, Hadoop is asking us for the name of the user that is going to log into all of these slaves and install the software. And fortunately, they all have the same username, which is Ubuntu. And they're all going to use the same key that we chose, that Hadoop key pair. So go ahead and find where that is and open that up. And here you can push continue as well. And there is no passphrase associated with that key pair. So on this screen, accept the dialog there, and it's going to go through the process of installing the base Oracle SDK as well as the individual Hadoop packages and the Cloudera Manager install scripts and Cloudera Manager agents on all these slaves. So you can see here the master node is already ahead of the game. He's already got a bunch of stuff installed on him, so he's always going to be running a little bit faster. As these are completing, you can always go into details. If you're like me and a geek and you want to see all the packages that are being installed and all of the individual commands that are being run on each of these slaves, you can do that. And we're just going to close that up. We see the master's completed. These additional slaves might take a little while to install, so you probably want to go ahead and pause the video, and I'll pick back up as soon as I see greens the whole way down. So after a couple minutes, you should see what I'm seeing right here. Looks like I got lucky and all of my slaves had completed, and my master as well. If any of your slaves failed for any reason, you would see a little red button pop up here that says Retry Failed Hosts. And you should be able to click that, and then your install would continue. But here, everything looks good, so just go ahead and push Continue. And at this point, the Cloudera Manager is installing the actual base CDH. So the base version of Hadoop is being installed on all the slaves in the cluster and the master itself. This process right here is going to take probably about 3 to 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and pause the video right here, and I'll pick back up as mine is completing. And you can see that I'm just wrapping up my install here. Got up to 100%. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead and push Continue. And in this phase, the Cloudera Manager is reaching out to all the slaves, validating that everything was installed and set up correctly as far as the Cloudera packages. So this will take a little bit for it to come back and tell us that everything did run and everything is looking good. All the services are installed where we expect them to be. Got green checks down everywhere. If you do see any red X's, you can come back to the top and click Run again, and that should resolve itself for you. Let's go ahead and push Continue. And on this screen, you have an option to choose a variety of services to install in the cluster. To make our install the fastest, we're just going to click Core Hadoop right here, and we can come back and install other packages at the appropriate time. We don't need Cloudera Navigator, but one important thing we're going to do is inspect our role assignments. Hadoop, when it logged into each of the servers, it tried to see who was the beefiest machine and install our name node and our job tracker on that machine. And let's see if it got it right. It's saying that host 187-47, the internal IP, which is actually the name of our master, which is an M1 large. So that server did actually get picked as the name node and the job tracker. So this is our master machine. Cloudera Manager did a good job there. The one thing that I wish it didn't do was install a data node and a task tracker on this machine. We want it to be a master only, so let's go ahead and unclick the data node and remove the task tracker as well, which happens when you unclick the data node. And if we scroll across to the right, we see that again, Cloudera Manager itself is installed on this machine too. Ideally, in a real production cluster, you would want to install Cloudera Manager on a separate machine, where additionally you would install Q and Oozie and Hive and the whole host of other things that you would run. But this all looks good. Our master is set up strictly as a master, and the 4 slaves are set up strictly as slaves. So let's push Continue here. And Cloudera Manager needs several databases. It specifically needs 4 databases to run. Services, activities, hosts, and reports are each logged in their own Postgres database. And if this were a real production cluster, I would write down the names of the users and the databases and the passwords, but we don't need that here, so just push Test Connection. And again, it's going to reach out on the master node to check all of these slaves and make sure we got green checks down all the way. And we now have the Continue button enabled. We push that. And at this point, we can override some of the default settings that Hadoop gives us, some of the more basic stuff that we might want to change. Even if you know what you're doing, let's go ahead and leave these the way they are to ensure that our cluster gets set up correctly. And push Continue. And then on this screen, it's going to take anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes for Hadoop to start up all of our individual services. And once everything is done, we should have a Continue button enabled. So this is probably a good place to go ahead and pause the video and wait until all of your services come up. And as my HDFS service is coming up, I want to talk about that briefly. The HDFS services, through the package installs and the parcel installs, go through and create several users and individual directories that if we were just installing from tarballs, we would have to create ourselves. So that's what's happening right here is we're creating users, we're creating directories, so on and so forth, not only for HDFS, but for MapReduce as well. That's why these steps take a little bit longer. So after a total elapsed 4 or 5 minutes, you're hoping to see something like this right at the end of the install. Let's go ahead and scroll down, make sure all of our services started up. This very last step is where Cloudera Manager is actually deploying the client configurations out to these slave nodes. And again, it doesn't really matter if we have 4 nodes or 400. This whole process to get our entire cluster up and running would take just as long. This combined 30 to 60 minutes. So great, we see green checks all the way down. Let's push Continue. And everything is running. It says, congratulations, you are through an entire cluster install. Let's push Continue, and we'll be redirected back to the Cloudera Manager homepage. And at this point, we have gone through and installed all of the services that we need to get our cluster up and running, and we're ready to now go into the next step of loading some test data into the cluster and validating everything was correct.